Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ask the Expert webinar, Discovery-Based Investigation in SAS Visual Investigator, your guide to better searches. My name is Thiago de Souza, and I will serve as your moderator for today's event. Now, I would like to take a moment to introduce our presenter, Allison Lin, a senior technical training consultant here at SAS. For over a decade, Allison has worked at the intersection of technology and business, helping her clients with technology to derive actionable insights and make data-driven decisions. In her current role, she leads the development of enablement content for SAS Visual Investigator. Allison, please take it away.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time to be with us this morning to learn about SAS Visual Investigator. Essentially, the objective of today's webinar is to teach you how to do better searches and using different search techniques in conjunction with the search features available in SAS VI. I can't see you or hear you, but I know you're there, and I really appreciate you spending the time with me on this lovely Tuesday morning. So let's get started. We're going to start with a very short and simple introduction to SAS VI search, followed by covering 3 search topics, the first being text search, then faceted search, then advanced search. And we're going to end today's discussion by talking about some future topics. And at that point, I would love to hear from you once more on what you're interested in learning next time. So let's get started. Let's start by talking about what is a discovery-based investigation. So a discovery-based investigation is essentially an investigation that starts with search, where you leverage the capabilities of SAS Visual Investigator to explore your data repository, looking at your data in depth to see if you can make any discoveries, whether that's discovering anomalies or uncovering suspicious patterns. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here is to discover that one piece of intelligence that can be actionable, where you can maybe open an alert, open an investigation, and use SAS Visual Investigator to then carry that investigation through end to end and manage any cases that arise from that investigation. And that's our goal here. And since search is such an important aspect of discovery-based investigations, it does make sense for us to spend some time exploring the different ways of making our search more effective. And before we move on, I do want to clarify that the availability of some of the search features that you're going to see in today's webinar is dependent on how your administrator has configured your system. But with that said, no 2 Visual Investigator instances look alike, but search should be applicable across the board. Everything covered today is going to be out-of-box functionalities. So if you don't see a particular feature available to you in your own environment, feel free to point your administrators to the webinar and have them maybe have it enabled for you. Everything should be fairly straightforward and easy to do. And now let's do a very short search overview. This could just be for those of you who are very familiar with search, as you mentioned earlier in the questionnaire, this would just be a refresher. So you know that you can search for content from 2 locations within SAS Visual Investigator. The first being the search page, where the majority of the search actions happen. And the second is actually the home page, if your admin has made that option available to you. The search terms themselves are case insensitive, so it doesn't really matter whether you're using uppercase or lowercase. Modifiers and operators can be used to enhance your search, so that way you can create more powerful search queries, as well as tailoring your search to exactly what you need it to be. And both modifiers and operators will be talked about later on in today's webinar. Next thing to note is that entering multiple terms in SAS VI returns results matching any of the terms by default. So what we mean by that is that SAS Visual Investigator by default does or searches. So we're talking about A or B, not A and B. And that's just a default behavior of SAS VI. And last but not least, searches can now be pre-configured. So what we mean by that is that this is actually a newer feature that came out last year, and we call that saved search, where your solution administrator can configure your system to include particular searches that you use regularly. So rather than you hopping into the system and having to type in a very complex search query each time, if that's a regular search that you do, they can configure for that to be saved in the system. So next time you come in, it's a matter of clicking a button to execute the same search. So really a way of streamlining your workflow. Okay, now we can dive into the first type of search with just a quick overview on text search. And as I mentioned previously, this webinar is aimed towards that investigator audience. Again, welcome investigators. So we're going to be spending the entirety of today's webinar on the investigator UI. So that's listed as investigate and search data under the SAS applications menu. And again, in the future, if there is need or desire and opportunity, we can certainly have more sessions to talk about administration and configuration. So to perform a search from SAS VI, like I talked about, you can do it from two different places. The first being the search page, where you can initiate various different types of search. The second being the home page, and that's what that would look like if your administrator has made that option available to you. And once you get onto the search page, you have the option of selecting a few different types of searches using the type menu. So right now we're zeroed in on standard search, as that's our topic of the day. To the standard text search, as some of you said that you're familiar with on the questionnaire earlier, it's really our most simple and basic form of search, where you're entering a search term in a search box like you would do with any other search engine, and then executing that search. If your search results in valid entries, then the results are going to be displayed on the result page. And let's take a moment just looking at the result page. So on the result page, you have the option of applying different visualizations to your result, whether that's a detailed view, kind of this list view that you're seeing here on screen, that's the detailed view, or a table view where your results will be displayed in kind of a tabular form. And in some cases, depending on the availability of geographical data, you will also be able to visualize your search result as part of a map view, where your results are actually laid on top of a interactive geographical map. So that's also pretty cool. On the left-hand side, you have a filters pane. Here you can filter based on the type of objects that you have by default, but additional configurations can also be applied by your admin to further subcategorize the results. And that's what we call faceted search. And that will be our second search topic of the day that we talk about later. Now, if any of your returned result looks promising to you, you can double click to go to that object's object page where you can get additional information and take further actions on that object. Now that we covered the basics of how to perform a standard text search, which is simple enough, let's actually go in and look at how we can use different techniques like operators, modifiers, to enhance that search, to just make it a little bit stronger. So we're going to start with Boolean operators. Boolean operators are simple words that are used to either combine or exclude keywords from search, so therefore giving you more relevant results. By default, like I mentioned previously, searches in SAS Visual Investigator are always going to be OR searches. So what that means is that if you type in John Smith, the result coming back is going to include objects with either John or Smith in any fields. So you might be fetching back a customer named John Smith, exactly what you want. You might be picking up someone named John David Smith, someone named Paul Smith, so who is not even a John, or someone living at 123 Smith Road. On the other hand, now, if you want to have a search result containing object with both John and Smith, you will use the AND operator. So for example, you will use the search query of John and Smith to bring back results containing only both John and Smith. But you see that John David Smith here are still being picked up because we haven't set any exclusion rules. Now on the topic of exclusions, if you want to exclude certain terms from your search result, you would then use the not operator. So if you are searching for Smith, not John, then you're going to pick up all of the Smiths in any given data field in any object, but without any references to the word John. And one thing you probably already noticed with the way that I am typing in my operators is that they are entered in uppercase. So that's pretty much the only rule when it comes to using Boolean operators in SAS VI, is that they had to be entered in uppercase. Otherwise, SAS Visual Investigator will treat it as a search term. Okay, now that we looked at Boolean operators, one more thing that we can use is wildcards. So you want to use wildcards when you cannot search for the exact string. Maybe because you don't know it, or maybe you just want to cast a wider net. So one wildcard that we can use is the asterisk, which will replace 0 or more characters. So searching for asterisk will bring back both seashore and seashell. On the other hand, one of my favorite ways of using the asterisk is to use a single asterisk in the search box. And what that will do is that it's actually going to return all of the available index data in your data repository. So that's quite powerful, as it gives you this very complete overview of exactly what you have in your data repository. Is it 1 million claims, 2 million policies, 1 million customer? You can view all of that at a glance by using this wildcard search. Now, while a asterisk will replace 0 or more characters, a question mark replaces a single character. So it's going to refine your search a little bit more while still giving you the flexibility of not knowing the exact string to search for. So here I'm searching for 3000 question mark, and that's bringing back all of the documents or all of the objects containing 30001, 2, or 3, where that question mark wildcard is. And as with Boolean operators, we also have rules that we have to follow when using wildcards, and that being that you cannot start a search string with a leading wildcard. So you can't start with a question mark or an asterisk and then write your search term. You have to start with your search term and then write your wildcard. Let's cover one more technique that we can use with the standard text search, and that's proximity search. So what proximity search does is that it enables you to search for keywords or phrases located within a specified distance from one another. So when you get your results, the closer it is to the input order, the higher the relevancy. And I will show you what that means in a second. First, let's look at the syntax that we have to follow for a proximity search. and that is to enclose your two keywords, keyword 1, keyword 2, in your quotation marks, followed by a tilde, which is that squiggly symbol, and a number indicating the distance, the maximum distance that's allowed between keywords. So searching for a parked vehicle, tilde 3, is going to bring back results such as insured vehicle parked in the driveway, the parked vehicle was insured, or the damaged vehicle found in car park. As you can see, a couple of things to note here. By searching for park, I am actually picking up parked as well. And the second thing to note is that in the third result, the two words that we're interested in, being vehicle and park, are the furthest apart. There are 3 words in between our keywords. 1, 2, 3. And because these 2 keywords are located the furthest apart from each other in this third line, that's why it's ranked last with respect to all the other returned results. So it has a lower relevancy because the keywords have a higher distance between them. And let's cover one more technique that we can use in the standard text search before we jump into a demo in our demo environment. I know we're going through a lot of theory content right now, but bear with me. We're going to jump into the software very soon. So in the example of insurance fraud, you might have a variety of different object types. You might be looking at insurance claims, insurance policies, you have customers, you have vehicles, you have addresses. So with each of these different object types come with a large number of data attributes. So you may be looking at things like claim ID, claim value, incident date. In all the search example we've covered so far, we're actually searching against all of the searchable fields and all of the searchable fields of all the searchable object types within your system. So it's a very broad net. But sometimes you just want to search within one specific field for a given object type because you know exactly what you're looking for. That's where the technique of field-based search will come in. So a field-based search allows you to search within a specific data field. Let's look at the syntax. So if you have a single search query, how you will execute a field-based search is the name of the field, followed by a colon, followed by your search term. But if you have multi-term queries that you want to execute, you will again start with a field name, but then your search terms will be enclosed in parentheses following the colon. An example is that if you search for claim_status, fraud, what you're going to get back are all the objects whose claim status contains the word fraud. So in this case, you're not going to be getting customer objects. You're not going to be getting policy objects because those objects don't have a claim status field. And while that techniques work really well with string fields, but what happens when you have a numeric field and you want to search within a given range? Then what you can do is that you can use square brackets for inclusive ranges and braces for exclusive ranges. How that would look like in an example is like this. So you have claim value, colon, square bracket, 10 to 20. What that means is that we're searching for all of the claim objects whose claim value is bigger than or equal to 10, smaller than or equal to 20. Now, if we were to swap the square brackets with braces, then what we're doing is that we're swapping the equals to less than with less than, equals to or greater than with greater than. So then with a combination of searching within ranges covered on this slide and searching for particular text keywords, in-string fields covered on the previous slide is how you can really effectively leverage the technique of searching within a particular field. Now that we have covered a few different ways to make our search a little bit better, that being the Boolean operator, using wildcards, proximity search, and searching within specific fields, let's look at an example in our environment together. And let's find all of the insurance claims whose claim value is between 100 and 1,000, whose claim type is theft. So now I'm going to share my screen so we can jump into our environment. And we should all be looking at our favorite software. And what's that? Our SAS Visual Investigator. Okay, so I am going to zoom in a little bit here. So you might notice the proportion getting a little bit wonky, but that's just so that we can see everything a little bit better in this demonstration. So this is the SAS Visual Investigator's homepage. Like I mentioned previously, there are two places for you to execute your search. The first being the search page, the second being from the homepage itself in a box like this. And that's what that would look like if that option is made available to you by your administrator. Let's go to the search page. So here under the type menu, we have the option of choosing a few different types of searches. We have standard search, map search, relationship search, and saved searches. So that's where your administrator may have configured searches that you use often and have saved them. So let's start with the standard search, and that's what we want to execute. And in our search, we wanted to search for all of the claim objects whose claim value is between 100 and 1,000. So then to do this, zooming a little bit further so we can read what we're typing. So claim underscore value, colon, 10, so 100 to 1,000. So this is where we're leveraging that field-based search. We're typing the name of the field, claim value. Notice that I am using an underscore as I am using the, sorry, I'm just seeing a chat. Screenshot looks good. Thank you, Thiago. Great. So we're using the exact database names for these fields, claim underscore value versus the labels that you might be seeing in the UI. And then we're using the square brackets to indicate a inclusive range. And we're going from 100 to 1,000. Let's execute that search. And as you can see, as a result of the search, we brought back 8 objects, all of which are claim objects, 4 auto claims, 4 home claims. And here is where you can see that the claim value for each of these objects all fall within the 100 to 1,000 range. Now let's go back to the search and add the second part of what we wanted to search for, which is that the claim type has to be theft. So we're now going to use a Boolean operator and to include the second part of our condition. And the second field that we want to search in is claim type. And we're going to say colon theft. I am using uppercase for my theft, even though that's not required. As we talked about previously, the SAS VI searches are case insensitive. So now let's go ahead and execute that search. Now we see that we have found the claim that we're looking for, whose claim value, 600, is between 100 and 1,000, whose claim type is theft. So that's now I'm going to stop sharing and navigate back to the webinar itself. Okay, so now that we covered our first topic of the standard text search and different ways of making it a little bit stronger, let's move on to the next topic, which is faceted search. So faceted search is a filtering technique, if you will, that will allow you to narrow down your search result by selecting attributes from a set of categories or subcategories. And that's where we start on the filters pane on the left-hand side, like we mentioned previously. So this is where you can narrow down on your results. The filter pin itself can be both resized or hidden. And by default, SAS Visual Investigator will divide and will allow you to filter based on object type. So that's default behavior that doesn't require any configuration. But what your administrator can do additionally is to create subcategories under each of these object types to allow you to conduct a more powerful faceted search. So in this case, what that looks like is you have your object type, you have the name of the object type, followed by a number in parentheses. And what that number is indicating is how many objects you have returned as part of your search result of a certain object type. You can select one of these checkboxes or multiple checkboxes based on what you want to see. So in this example, I have selected the checkboxes for auto claim, auto policy, and customer. So that means I'm looking at all of the objects of these three object types. And if you notice on the left-hand side here, we have these little sideway arrows, which, or in other words, chevrons. What that does is that it allows you to further filter on these three different object types, or you can drill down further, if you will. If you were to look at the auto claim, once we drill into the auto claim object by expanding on that chevron, you can see that the system configuration by the administrator, i.e. me in this case, is that I have added 4 additional subcategories under auto claim, and that's claim type, incident date, claim value, and alcohol involved flag, which is just a flag indicating whether alcohol was involved in the car accident. So in addition, one thing that's really cool is that in addition to setting these filters, sub-filters on claim type, incident date, claim value, what you can actually do is that you can create custom filters. So in this example, I have created a custom filter called large value claims. And what that does is that it's a filter for all the claims whose claim value is greater than $10,000. So you as an investigator, rather than coming in and having to click a bunch of buttons, say claim value within a range, claim value equals to claim value greater than, if large value claims is always a behavior that you're interested in seeing, by having a custom filter that's built as a checkbox like this by your administrator, it can really streamline your process so you can see the most relevant data faster. And now let's look at how that will look in the software itself. We're going to find all the insurance claims whose claim type is vehicle-only accident, whose claim value is above $10,000, and they have all occurred within a specific week in 2017. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. Okay, and now we're back to SAS Visual Investigator. Let's navigate back to the search page. I'm going to clear out of my search from before. So instead, I am going to type in an asterisk. What we talked about previously is that when you search for a single asterisk, you're bringing back all of the available objects in your data repository. So you can see I have a total of 175 objects in my data repository, and 29 of which are auto claims. So we know that we're looking for auto claims, so I'm just going to go ahead and check this box. And that narrows it down from 175 down to 29. I'm going to click on the chevron to expand the subcategories that's available to me under auto claims. And then I'm going to one by one tick these filters to do essentially a faceted search based on the criteria that we showed previously. So the first is that the claim type has to be a vehicle-only accident. So I'm going to go ahead and check that box under claim type. One thing to note here is that the moment that I check this checkbox, some of the numbers that you can see underneath for these other subcategories have changed. So if I go back to all, we have, say, for example, 3 large value claims under all claim type. But if I change the claim type to accident vehicle only, now suddenly there are only 2 large value claims. So all of the sub filters are working dynamically as you they're updating dynamically as you select your filtering criteria. So the first one has set for claim type. And the second thing we're looking for is that the claim value has to be above 10,000, which luckily is the threshold of our large value claim custom filter that we have defined previously. So now we have 2 claims with the right claim type, with the right claim value. And the last thing we want to look for is that they have occurred within the first week of May of 2017. So let's go to incident date and select within a range. From here, we have the option to use a calendar to make our selection. Okay, 2017 May 1st. Alternatively, we can also just type it in if we know that, and clicking apply. So now we have narrowed down to exactly 1 claim that fits all 3 conditions. And that's the gist of faceted search. If I close out on my auto claim facets, you can see that we have facets, subfacets that are configured for other object types as well, such as auto policy, customer. You can do it based on postal code, customer name, etc. And you can see that for street postcode, for example, it automatically have gathered statistics on the available postal codes, as well as counting how many objects falls within that available street postal code category. So now I'm going to stop sharing and move back to the webinar once more, where we jump into the last type of search that we wanted to talk about today, which is advanced search. So in the past, we have talked a lot about operators, modifiers, and a lot of specific syntax that you have to use, which I think can be a little bit hard to remember, even for me. So that's what's good about the advanced search, is that it allows you to execute more complex searches without knowing exactly the specific context for query construction. You don't have to remember any rules. You don't have to memorize how to type something, which type of bracket to use. Is it square brackets versus braces? So that's what's good about advanced search. And all of that is done in a point and click interface. It allows you to select an object type. You can select a specific object type or search against all the different objects, a category. So by category, we mean, what do you want to search? Do you want to search within a specific field? Do you want to search within attachments? Do you want to search within comments? It allows you to apply modifiers and use wildcards like you would in a standard search to kind of broaden your search result. And let's take a really quick look at how we will perform an advanced search. So to perform an advanced search, you would go to the search page and you will look for the advanced search button on the right-hand side of your search box. They will either be configured as a single button like this or as part of a drop-down menu, which is what you will see in my environment later when we jump into the demo. And once you click on the advanced search box, the window will come up where you will be allowed to select an object type. So is it a claim? Is it a policy? Is it a customer? A field or category? Like I said, you can select what exactly do you want to search within that object type. Do you want to search comments and attachments? Do you want to search within a given numeric field or a string field? The operator, is it an exact phrase? Is it contains any? Is it contains all? Your search term itself. but this is also an opportunity for you to apply wildcards or use fuzzy matching. So that's using a variety of different symbols, which we will cover later. And last but not least, you will see a set of modifiers on the right-hand side of your search box in which you can modify your search in one way or another. And if you want to add additional query conditions or parameters, you can use the plus button. What that will do is that will add a new row for you to add a second condition to. So if you wanted to search for a condition based on claim type as well as claim value, that will be two separate rows, and you will use the addition button to make that happen. And as you generate your query, dynamically underneath in this text box, the system will write out exactly what that query will look like if you were to type it out in standard search. At any point, you also have the option to switch to a text editor if that's faster. So we're going back to the world of standard search. And then you will, of course, just execute your search. And before we jump into the demo in the environment, I just wanted to revisit the available wildcards, fuzzy matching, and modifiers that we can use in a advanced search context. So wildcards and fuzzy matching will be available for string fields only when you set the operator to contains any or contains all. And I will show you what that looks like later. Just as a reminder, the asterisk matches 0 or more characters. The question mark matches exactly one character. Tilde applies fuzzy matching to the value. This is different from the proximity search we showed in standard search. So this would be a single tilde following whatever your search term is. Okay, next, modifiers. They're located to the right of the search box, like I showed you earlier. They're displayed next to the box, and then the proximity modifier looking like a double tilde is what will allow you to specify distance between terms. So a different way of executing the proximity search. A single dash or a minus sign is the not operator. It will exclude any results that match the query. So it's an exclusion. The boost modifier will make the current query more relevant. So if you're looking for all of the different Johns in the country, but you're really interested in Smith, so John Smith will come up higher than John McLean, for example. And last but not least, there is a special modifier that looks like this that represents your phonetic and synonym search. So a phonetic search is a search based on how things sound. So it enables you to find terms with a similar sound to your search term. So you will have, it's hard to think of like a good phonetic search example, but perhaps if you think about people with names with different spellings, like my name is Allison, you can spell it with Allison, but you can also spell it with Alllyson. That's another common spelling of my name. They both sound phonetically identical, but they're spelled differently. So searching for one versus the other might exclude results that are helpful to you. And in particular, when it comes to names and regions and different spelling variations and as well as data entry, human error, using phonetic search could really be helpful in making sure that you don't miss out on the relevant results. And next, we have synonym search that's also enabled by this modifier. And synonym search is essentially based on the meaning of your word versus the spelling of the word. So if you were to search for happy, maybe the word joyful is also going to come up because they are synonym to each other. Okay, now let's do a last demo of advanced search. where we're going to go using the advanced search feature, find all the customers whose first name is James, whose last name starts with the letter S, and who lives in either London or Birmingham. Sharing my screen one last time. Okay, we're once more looking at SAS Visual Investigator. I'm going to go back to the search. And here on the search page, to the right-hand side of the search box, we have a drop-down menu where you can click and launch the window for advanced search. I'm going to start by selecting an object type. Like we said, we wanted to look for customers, so I'm going to select customer. And the first field that we want to do the match on is first name, so I'm going to say customer first name. I'm going to use contains any, or alternatively, I can also use phrase. So let's go ahead and use phrase. I'm going to say James. And I want to show you what is the difference between the different operators. So you see that when I'm using phrase as an operator, inside the generated query text, it has put quotation marks around the word James. So in that case, we're looking for an exact match. So it has to be James. But if I were to say contains any or contains all, you see that the quotation marks disappear. So then if the person's name is not James, but Jimison, that will also come back as part of the result because we're not using an exact match. And that's our first condition, people whose first name is James. And now we want to look for people whose last name also starts with S. So to do that, I'm going to add a second query row. And notice that you have the option to set the relationship between these two conditions as either and or. We're going to select and. We're going to select last name. And I'm going to say S. And then I'm going to use the wildcard asterisk to indicate that whatever comes after the letter S, we're happy with it because we just want names that starts with S. And that's add one more query row, and that's going to be someone that lives in London or Birmingham. So I'm going to go here, select the city. Oh, I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller so I can grab the city name. And I'm going to say London or Birmingham. Okay, here, notice that we're enclosing these two search terms within parentheses following the colon and the name of the field, but I didn't actually have to type in an OR operator like this. And in fact, that when I do type in the OR operator, it appears many times and it's probably going to yield an error. What I wanted to show is that these searches in SAS Visual Investigator are by default OR searches, like we mentioned earlier. So now we're ready to execute the search. But before that, I just wanted to point out the other operators. So this is what that synonym phonetic operator looks like. Here is the not operator. Here is a boost operator, and that's how you add a new query row or delete a new query row. But notice that certain operators are only available for certain fields. It all depends on what you have selected and what fields that you're searching against. Okay, now let's press search. Now we have found our customer whose first name is James, whose last name is Sykes, who lives in London. And that's exactly the conditions that we wanted to match. So that is the last example that I wanted to show you on advanced search. And as we're almost at the top of the hour, I'm going to stop sharing. And before we go to the Q&A, I would love to just engage with you one more time and ask you questions. So I want to know what future topics you might be interested in when it comes to SAS Visual Investigator search. It's a map search. Like I mentioned earlier, that's where you can search within a geographical map. You can essentially open a map that's going to be interactive. You can select an area of interest or specify a radius, and you can search and fetch all of the objects that falls within that geographical radius. That's what essentially map search is. Or relationship search, where you leverage the network building capabilities of SAS Visual Investigator to search based on relationships. So perhaps you want to find all of the vehicles involved in a insurance claim tied to a policy whose policyholder is John Smith. So you can really take quite a few different hops within that network to build a search based on the existing relationships. Or safe search, like I mentioned, how do you pre-configure your searches so that you can easily execute them with the click of a button? And last question is about centering around admin versus users, whether you would find more helpful to see more admin configuration content or just more of these type of contents which is catered 100% towards end users. Okay, so take it away.
Thank you. While we're waiting for your last bit of answers here to our final poll question, we'll be moving into our Q&A segment right after.
Okay, great. So we're seeing a good spread between map search, relationship search, and safe search, and some administrator content. Okay, perfect. That's definitely giving us really good ideas for next time.
Yep. All right, now let's get right into the Q&A portion. We had someone ask, you might have covered this, but someone asked, is it case sensitive while doing the name text search?
It is case insensitive to search in SAS Visual Investigator.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't matter if you're using uppercase or lowercase.
Gotcha. Doesn't matter. Another question here. In the advanced search part of the webinar, you talked about synonym search. How do you get synonyms defined?
That's a really good question. We don't actually follow a particular like Webster's dictionary definition of synonyms. It's actually pre-configured by your administrator. So they will essentially submit what almost looks like a text file into the system, and that is how synonyms are specified. But that could also be very powerful because in addition to defining strictly what we consider to be synonyms, i.e. two words that have the same meaning, what you can also do is use it to capture all the different tenses. Like for example, in the English language, you have present tense, past tense, and searching for present tense might not yield results that's written in past tense. So if you want to find all of the theft cases, searching for steal or stealing may not cover all of the cases in which the description is stolen, which is past tense. So you can also add the different tenses to your synonym configuration, and that's a good way to really cover your bases.
Gotcha. Thank you. Someone just sent in, can you force the search to be case sensitive?
Yes, so there are, if you were to search with phrases and you have those double quotation marks surrounding your key term, you should be in that case searching based on the exact case.
Perfect. Thank you. Another one here regarding facet search. Can I customize and save a set of filters for future use?
Yes. I mean, I guess the question is the list of filters that's available to you is pre-configured by your administrators. So in terms of the availability of the subcategories and what's present, that is pre-configured and will always be there and be the same. But in terms of like what you actually tick, like you're always ticking one checkbox there, one checkbox there, like that will not necessarily be saved unless it's built into a custom filter in Facet Search. But custom filters in Facet Search tends to typically work on a single field level. So it's a bit of an elaborate extended answer to that question. But I hope.
Perfect.
I answered.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Let's do one final question here. Can admins configure which fields are indexed or searchable?
Yes, absolutely. They can configure, it's completely based on their configuration on which fields are indexed and searchable, as well as which fields are available for phonetic and synonym search. So if you are in your environment and you are not seeing options for phonetic and synonym search, that's because they don't have any data fields that's being enabled to specifically do that type of search.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today, but if we did not get to yours, we will answer all unanswered questions in our follow-up communities post. Thank you, Allison, for your answers, and thanks to everyone in the audience for joining us today. On behalf of myself, Allison, and all of SAS, we really hope that you enjoyed today's webinar. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.